welcome everyone to our Twitter space on Republican Weirdo Olympics. We won't just be talking about exclusively Republican weirdos or even just American weirdos today, but largely I think they will dominate the conversation. So, we will include other types of weirdos also.
Yeah, they're our worst export. Sorry, guys.
I mean, as a Canadian, I have to apologize for some of our fucking weirdos as well that we've been exporting. So
you're not sending us your best, I know.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I apologize for Jordan Peterson, and were he participating in this edition of the Weirdo Olympics, he'd probably walk away with the gold and everything, but he will not be mentioned much today. I don't really have much to talk about regarding him today.
Yeah, today.
But yeah, Matthew, you and I were talking, and it's really funny that neither of us are really sports watchers or sports appreciators, or even Olympics watchers. So it's actually funny that we are titling our Twitter space the Weirdo Olympics. I mean, I don't watch sports, but I do watch a lot of weirdos, to be fair. So I think I can speak on that.
Well, I don't see how it's any different than watching golf from my standpoint. Have you seen how they dress over there?
On the golf course, you mean? I don't pay much attention, but
yeah. Well, no, that was for anybody who remembers that Payne Stewart, it was notorious, but there's just a lot of golfers that are known for their ridiculous outfits. So they would fit right in, and in fact, many of them do. Like John Daly, the retired former golf pro, who is now like a super duper Donald Trump fan.
Okay, now you're talking about sports. You promised me we wouldn't do this.
Hey, I only talk about what they do off of the course. I have no idea how good or not
they are. All right, well, let's see where to begin with all the fucking weirdo shit. I have felt, actually, like I am some Olympic gymnast just watching U.S. politics lately, because it feels like it's been, 2 years in just like a couple of weeks. You've had an assassination attempt. You've had Biden step down and endorse Kamala. You've had like weird culty shit happening around ear bandages. I mean, it has been, fucking weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I was feeling extremely, extremely hopeless when it comes to U.S. elections. And I'm not American, but, whatever happens with you guys always affects us. So, I mean, we all have a dog in that fight. And it was just feeling like a hopeless dead end, a choice between the current genocidal maniac and possibly an even worse genocidal maniac. So it wasn't really feeling like much of a choice. And I don't know how much better Kamala is going to be. Her rhetoric has been just slightly better. And the bar is so low that it has really energized a lot of people, and I hope that she will lean into that and not extremely fuck things up. But yeah, on the topic of Israel and Gaza, which matters so much to me right now, like I feel like something needs to be different, and the momentum is there, and I'm hoping for the best, but I do recognize that in these political systems of these countries, I mean, everyone's going to toe a basic line, and it's not going to be incredible and just like wonderfully left. But we will take just even a little bit of difference from the current support and funding and arming of the ongoing genocide. But anyway.
That is the difference, ultimately, of what it means to have a realistic and sensible progressive viewpoint, which is that you understand that you can't have everything all at once, unfortunately, and that that injustice is very powerful, and you can't to believe that it's going to be magically suddenly overthrown is just not realistic. And in fact, that's a ploy of the right wing to get people to think that way, because when it doesn't happen, then they give up and stay home and do nothing. And
I will say though, that post left stuff is not my jam at all. But I will say, for the first time in my life, especially when Biden was understood to be running, I felt like I completely understand why someone would not want to vote in this horrific election. So, like, I have always said, like, you should at least vote and not let the right win power. But if someone has lost like multiple family members and you're going to tell them that Trump is going to be worse, like, for the first time, I understand that just isn't sufficient. So I just wanted to put out there that, we can be pragmatic and realistic. And some of us have the luxury of doing that, but some of us are really feeling the pain in a very personal way. And, I hear you if you are feeling that way, but please don't let Trump win. That's all I can say.
Yeah, because everything that concerns you will only be worse, and you will be sacrificing the rights of all women in America for if you throw your vote away in one way or the other. So please don't do that, and don't do that to the LGBTQ Americans as well. And of course, Trump and his many racist, awful things as well. And so anyway, but speaking of the Middle East, though, we should maybe look into where this whole weird thing got started.
Let's start with how fucking weird that assassination attempt was. Like, even that was fucking weird. Because, like, what a psycho reaction to, like, get grazed by a bullet and then, like, come up with, like, your fist pumped up and just shout, fight, 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 as there's, like, blood streaming down the side of your face. It was such a fucking bizarre image, and I apologize. I'm cursing a lot. I know, it's very, very unladylike.
Trump is really the only thing he really is a performer. Like, he has no other core other than that he wants people to pay attention to him and to like him. And like that's really what this was. Like, this was fantasy.
If you just miss a bullet, I mean, I might be like shaking or like just being like thankful I'm still alive, just recovering from the shock of it. But to immediately jump up, fist in the air, and be yelling, fight, 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 it's such an absurd response to have to something, to surviving a violent attack like that.
Well, I think that he I think he really thought that he had, and he said something like this. I believe, if I remember right, that he thought he had won the presidential election when that happened. Like, this was.
I have to say, he was
so overjoyed about it. And to be honest, I did not think that it was going to do anything.
Really?
I didn't, because nobody feels like, the only people who would feel sympathy for him are people who already like him. Like, everybody else on the progressive side, or even a lot of like moderates who just don't like him, are but like, so repulsive and so disgusting that you're not going to feel sorry for him.
I don't know. The rhetoric of the Democrats was like they were just willing to lay down and give up. Like, that's what it was seeming like. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was bad before, but like they've just given up. Biden can't even string two sentences together, and it's over. Like, how are we going to recover from this like propagandistic, like, a wet dream of an image of him like fist pumping after surviving an assassination attempt?
Yeah, well, and ultimately, I think probably the biggest factor was that, you know, people, once it came out that the guy who did it is a crazy right-winger from all indications, and he and he was using a gun that Trumpers give out at rallies, and they wear fucking pins of this gun on their lapels in Congress. So, like, if anything, he did this to himself, you know, with his policies. I mean, there is no question that with all the guns that Republicans are, you know, allowing in America, and it didn't used to be this way. America did not have nearly so many guns as it does now, and this was created by Republicans because they knew that, you know, gun humpers will vote for Republicans. So that's their goal. And but yeah, I mean, that ultimately once it came out, and it came out right before the convention that the guy who the shooter was in fact a right-wing Republican, as was his dad, and it just, I think it took.
But then they also bring up that he donated at some point to some progressive group or something. But I mean,
yeah, and it looks like it was just so he could watch a live stream for some event that he was interested in. That's all it was, and he unsubscribed more than a year after he had done that. So. Yeah, but you know, we're still waiting to see fully, you know, what other things he was interested in, but not looking good for the far right with this stuff. And
do you think, like, it's so absurd that this guy was on this rooftop and people were pointing him out, and there's like communications between the Secret Service and the police or something has come out, and it just took them forever to even do something about this guy. I mean, I bet you anything that if he was not a white guy, that he would not have gotten this far or this close if he was spotted.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that's probably true. Although in rural Pennsylvania, pretty much everybody there is white. No joke. But yeah, and I think it just completely collapsed their entire narrative that they were the victim narrative that they were going to construct for each other, and so now they've and then of course with Biden dropping out and Harris coming in, I mean, it's just they've been floundering ever since, and and we got to give
then they also tried to push this thing about the shooter being trans, which they do after every shooting. It's so despicable.
I actually did not see that one.
Oh, you didn't? Oh,
no.
Okay. But yeah, they try that all the time. Fake images, the wrong person. And I mean, I know what that's like because they do that to brown people all the time. They do that to people of Muslim backgrounds. They always like assume that some shooter is Muslim until it comes out that he's not. So it's bad. But, you know, that response with that comically large Band-Aid on the ear, and then like the cultists also wearing the Band-Aid on the same ear, just so strange. Like, imagine trying to explain that to an alien. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because this is actually a replay of something that they did in 2004. Although that original time they they were mocking it. So in 2004, they were trying to claim that John Kerry, the Democratic candidate, had somehow faked his war injuries and some of the exploits that he was in, and so they at the Republican convention in 2004, they all wore Band-Aids to mock John Kerry. So this is a thing for them. They apparently love wearing band-aids to virtue signal.
They also have worn diapers for the same reason.
They have, yes. Yes, people, if you don't know that, guys, you absolutely, let me see if I can share that into the space here. This became a thing after people have been accusing Donald Trump of wearing Depends or adult diapers. And the Trumpers were like, well, yeah, oh yeah, well, we support Trump. We don't care if he wears diapers. We're going to wear diapers too. So fuck you, libs. Yeah.
And before that, Charlie Kirk, and like I think they did that on campus too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, you should tell people about that one. That's a throwback there. I know.
Yeah, I can't even remember the details. Was it like some campus event that Charlie Kirk was having? I think they were trying to mock the snowflake SJWs, and so they had like someone dress up in a diaper as a baby. But then that image has just like forever been circulated of a right winger dressed up in a diaper. And like, dude, that's you guys. You are literally dressing in diapers. You can say that you wanted to make fun of SJWs, but you're the ones doing it.
Yep. Yeah, and so we do have to give credit, and I don't have the tweet in front of me, but whoever the Twitter user was that got the whole JD Vance couch thing going, they're the ones who got the whole Republican weird thing started, at least in terms of the effect. And so my hat's off to him. And then Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, he's the one who put it on the map for the Democratic leadership class to be like, people will respond to that. And we've been off to the races ever since. And they've been losing their fucking minds about all this. It's been very, very fun to see. And it's so funny because, like, I think generally speaking, on the internet, for people who are political, junkies or follow the news closely, I think we have, a general understanding that Republicans love freaking out about things and trying to cancel people. Like, for all their whining about cancel culture is terrible, like these guys invented it. And they do it every day. They look for a chance to do it every single day. But the regular normies who don't really pay attention to the news or politics much, they didn't know this stuff. They didn't know about Bud Light.
I mean, just try burning a flag, right? There's the right-wing cancel culture comes up very, very quickly.
Yeah. So much for free speech absolutism.
That's right.
But and so like the Bud Light thing, I think it never really crossed over, and neither did Tucker Carlson talking about how he wants to have sex with the M&Ms.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity. They've won.
That's hilarious to us. Like, we remember that, and we had a great laugh at it. But like, there was no framework for the normies to understand that, because like, that's the thing about Republicans. They're so crazy that a lot of people
they really are. I mean, who the fuck cares if the green M&M is not sexy enough? If her shoes are now sensible and not stilettos. But yeah, right-wingers do care. They care.
They care very deeply. So, I mean, they love saying, fuck your feelings, but really what they really mean that, because they want you to care a lot about their feelings. Quite a bit. They're just a big bundle of feels, is what they are. And, so yeah, those guys, that Twitter user really, really nailed it by getting that started, and we'll get into it further. But but I mean, now it's like every week they have something that they have to freak out about, because they don't have policies that anybody wants. They don't have ideas. They don't have a philosophy. All they have, they're called these people are not conservatives. I think that's something that is important to understand, is that these people are reactionaries. They don't have ideas. They have irritable mental gestures. That's what they have. And that's why they're always finding things to get angry about, even if they're imaginary, like in the case of right now with the Olympics, right?
Oh, yeah. The Olympics, it's so funny because I was watching that opening ceremony thinking, nah, it's so blah, it's so bland, it's so meh, whatever. It feels disjointed. I thought maybe the right would be pissed about the Last Supper looking thing, which was not technically the Last Supper, but close enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said it was. There was a lot of confusion. And then I saw, like, you know, the drag queen fashion show, which was great, but, like, not like, you know, didn't have the special effects or, like, just like, whoa, what's happening? Like that you see at Olympics opening ceremony. So I was like, yeah, whatever, okay. But, you know, it's cool that they decided to take this stance to piss off right-wingers because, you know, if you put drag queens in anything, that means you are making a principled stance to purposely upset right-wingers, and I think that is always great. But then the stupid, I think IOC already apologized, like as soon as they got enough outrage from right-wingers about it. And yeah, so the one good thing they had going for them, they walked back very, very quickly. And then I'm like, why did you not anticipate that there would be right-wing outrage about this? Like, I thought it was like purposely done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, but I mean, here's the thing, though. Like, far-right Christians are so completely ignorant about their own religion. Like, that's what is the most hilarious thing about them, is that they care very deeply about Christianity and their faith and all that, but they understand nothing about it. Most of them have never even read the Bible more than like 5 pages. And because they just sit there and, you know, they turn on the televangelist or they show up in their brainwashing church and they tell them what to think and what to believe and everything like that. And so they basically they have no idea that, you know, what the French were showing in that opening ceremony was it was a bacchanal. It was a tribute to the Greek origins of the Olympics and you know, then the communal feast. I mean, the communal feast in the, you know,
it was supposed to be depicting a heathen feast, like a hedonistic gathering of the Greek gods.
And they were doing that literally 1,000 years at least before Christianity was invented. So, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, with Christmas or Easter, for instance, like they always love to say that, you know, Jesus is the reason for the season. And it's literally the opposite. It is literally the opposite. The season is the reason. And they don't even know that. Which is so.
But I do think that there was some confusion even amongst like the organizers because they acknowledged and apologized for it resembling the Last Supper. But then, like the art director, there was a clip of him explaining that this is not the Last Supper. So I think even internally there was so much confusion that even some of the participants in that like tableau were like, hell yeah. So they were saying that it is the gay testament and they were joking about it. And right-wing conservative Christians have been using that as some sort of like oh yeah, you're saying it's like this painting of the Olympic gods, but here's one of the participants saying that this is a gay testament. And so you guys are just switching it up. No, I don't think anyone's intentionally switching it up. It's just that there are parallels, and I think that the painting of that Greek god feast also has parallels with the Last Supper, so there are visual similarities, and people will interpret it differently.
Well, and it's also, I mean, what this is, though, is like, this is an inception of idiocracy, is what it is, because like Christianity is heavily based on ancient Greek traditions and ideas And like, yeah, the whole idea of, I mean, it was a huge thing in Greek and Roman culture to have the communal feast as part of a religious gathering of blessing and thankfulness. Like the Christians just wholesale copied this. Like that's what the sacrament is. The Eucharist is in Christianity is a complete ripoff of how it was of these original Greek communal feasts. Like, and so, but if you don't know the history, you're going to think that in fact, I mean that's why I say it's an inception of idiocracy, because like if you don't understand the history, you will think that this is a mockery of Christians when in fact Christians are mocking the Greek religion. If anyone's getting mocked here, it's the ancient Greeks for their religion. But in fact, they knew how to have a good time. So like it was just such complete bullshit.
Or not just not mocking necessarily, maybe just like borrowing, because like I mean religions do that, right? They take ideas from other places.
I'm being facetious when I say mocking.
Okay. Teddy, did you want to say something?
The whole point of Dionysus was to have fun and to be silly and to mock everything. Like it was all ridiculous. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Hey y'all. I have a theory of weird that I want to share and get your thoughts on about kind of why the kind of modern conservative movement. When I say that, I mean like broadly speaking, like the MAGA faithful right-wing influencers on Twitter, everyone within kind of the modern kind of conservative sphere, not necessarily like kind of the intellectual kind of part of it or whatever. But my theory is that the kind of modern conservative is driven by a single kind of core emotion, and that is fear. And so like John Fee, who is a historian in theology, has written about this as it regards to the Christian right specifically, but I think it could be applied more broadly. And I think it is a fear of a single thing, a fear of the other taking their stuff or them losing their stuff. And that could regards to anything from like immigrants are taking our country, taking away our jobs. Black and brown people are taking away our culture or taking away our benefits. Trans people are taking away our trophies that we're supposed to win in sports. I think the best way to kind of understand this weirdness and why it looks so weird and why the right is constantly obsessing over these various outrages. And by the way, Poker and Politics wrote a pretty great thread about kind of the hamster wheel of this outrage kind of machine on the right. But I think that if you kind of want to understand kind of the motivations behind this and kind of any single outrage, I think the best kind of thing to start with is how is this a manifestation of one of the conservative movement's fears? What do they perceive as being taken away from them? So I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on what you think of that theory of weird.
I think that's right. And that, I mean, we were going to maybe hit that toward the end, but hey, we can do it now. I like I agree with that. And, because ultimately people who have far right ideologies, they know that their ideas are not popular. They know that they have no proof for their beliefs. They know that. Like they know that they can't prove the Earth is not 6,000 years old. They know that they can't prove that they can't disprove human evolution. They know that they can't. I mean, just a variety of things that they know they can't prove. They can't. I mean, it's not just Christians either. Like, they can't prove that Muhammad didn't go. That Muhammad went up to the heavens in a chariot, or whatever, or was magically transported to Jerusalem. Like, none of those things are provable, and they all know it. And people who have more, better epistemologies, who are religious, have.
Don't you say anything about Muhammad.
Like people with more sound epistemologies who are religious have basically abandon the belief that these stories are actually happened. But for fundamentalists, they cling to them because they really don't want to have. They feel they're so invested in it, and so they feel continually threatened by everything, by anyone, especially people whose beliefs or identities are different than theirs. Like, I mean, the entire right wing epistemology is identity politics. Like, that's what's so hilarious when they accuse other people of doing it. It's like, you guys invented it. Your entire worldview is about your identity and about whiteness or Christianness or maleness or femaleness or whatever it is about them that they find as their primary identity, and heterosexuality, etc. I mean, like, when you call them weird, you're hitting them where it hurts, because they know that you're right, ultimately.
It's sort of like that milkshaking tactic, right? Because you're not hitting them with something hard or cruel. You're just kind of poking fun at them and exposing how silly they are. And that is what they can't stand. And that's why weird bothers them so much. And that's why, like, they might like fist pump after real attacks, but like a milkshake is like, oh my God, milkshaking the fascists is like a mock assassination, according to Sam Harris, who wishes for the far right to show up and beat up Antifa.
And that's actually what one hopes for these people in the video. If you think this is effective political work so as to get people to worry more about authoritarianism and about the heavy-handedness of the state and about the rise of the far right, it has absolutely the opposite effect. You see a few videos of Antifa, you want the far right to show up, and you certainly want the state to clamp down on this kind of behavior.
Yeah, because, the identity politics is built around authority, and the authority is not earned from being, having the better ideas. It's earned just from who they are. And and just that machismo, right? Like that, yeah. It hits them in the being macho and strong. And when you make them look silly and absurd and they don't know what to do with that, but also that politics of fear, right? You're very right, Teddy. I think that all of their hate is rooted in fear. Though I think that the trans people are taking our trophies is a much bigger issue. I don't think it's the trophies they care about. It's they use the sports as a way to express their hatred of trans people, challenging gender binaries and I guess heteronormativity and just heteronormative families, and anything that challenges that is the ultimate threat. So they will pretend to care about sports and trophies much more than they actually do. At least that's what I think. But yeah, they are, again, afraid of having something taken away from them. Something that, something that most of the world subscribes to, that is not under threat. It's just like how you see nationalists and far-righters of every stripe, every country being like playing the victims. Like Hindu nationalists talk about Hindu phobia, and Islamists talk about the Western decadence taking over, and Western far-righters talk about the left allying with Islamists. And they're always like the victims. Christians are the biggest victims here in North America when they're not. So. Yep. Yeah, their whole thought is about loss, that everything they think is losing. Like, that's why when Trump came along and told them, I'm going to win, we're going to win, do nothing but win. That wasn't true. And, but, he was fulfilling their fantasy, basically, ultimately, is what he was doing. So, yeah. And that's...
were you surprised when Biden finally stepped down and endorsed Kamala, because I was not expecting that to happen with the way that he was really digging his heels in, it seemed. But then the pressure just seemed to be mounting, and I was hoping for it, but I didn't want to be too hopeful because it did seem like it would happen, and it did. That's what I mean. I feel like I've been doing Olympic level gymnastics just by watching U.S. politics, and I'm getting like whiplash or something.
I mean, Biden, he has a very small circle of aides who and family members that they were protecting him from reality, basically. And I mean, I felt like that, after the debate, maybe about like a week afterward, I thought that it was going to happen. Once it was coming out that Nancy Pelosi was doing things the scene.
Yeah, that was huge.
I knew it was over after that. So, but it completely discombobulated the right wing because they had built their entire campaign around Joe Biden is old. That was it. There was no other real argument, and it was an effective argument. I mean, because he is hella old, and so their biggest argument and everything and they had built up their hate machine against him for so long, and encourage people to see him both as a, doddering rest home patient, but also an evil mastermind, and who was trying to censor the Republicans and get his son out of jail. And of course, none of that was true. I
will say though, he does seem very frail and doddering and old, but he is also very evil and arming a genocidal state right now and digging his heels into that. So, I mean, I think that both are possible, but the idea that
why they thought he was wrong, because they want to give Israel nukes and get them to blow up the Gaza Strip. Just going back to the Olympics here, so first they had to make up this nonsense about the opening ceremonies. And none of these people ever do research or reporting. They see a thing on TV and they say it's true. Like that's how they think, and they have a backwards thought process. Sound thinking is you look at a thing and then you research the thing and then you form your idea after that. But these guys they look at a thing and they're like, oh, this is true, and then they go from there. And they've been doing that. I guess, I mean, it's true. It's interesting to say whether they're doing it deliberately, knowing that they're lying, or just being lazy on this one with Imani Khalif of Algeria, the boxer. I mean, just the attacks on her have been so despicable. I guess we have
Savannah?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually think it's on purpose. Like, they know, but they're trying to get their people outraged. Like, it's an engagement thing. It's to keep people, it's to keep right-wingers engaged and outraged, because they went from Dr. Seuss to, Bud Light to, I can't even keep track of all the outrage.
M&M's, steak.
And
Target.
Target. Yeah.
And I mean, it happens to a lesser extent here in Canada. First it was vaccine mandates, and then, occupied the whole city of Ottawa. And, those people were weird. They were really weird. I know some of those people, some people I grew up with got involved in that. They're weird.
Oh, no.
They're weird. Really weird. They were always weird ever since I knew them as children. They were weird.
Oh, yeah. Weird children grow up to be right-wingers. I mean, well, no, listen, we have to distinguish between good weird and bad weird. There's good weird, right? When you own your weirdness, you're weird about
And
yeah, you're not weird about like other people's human rights and stuff.
But like their outrage before that, like, because I have followed them and they tried to do that thing, those convoys to Ottawa. It was about that migration compact that was a non-binding bill in Parliament. If you remember that, that was before,
No.
and then it was that motion on Islamophobia. They got mad about that.
Oh yes. And that was really nothing. That was just stating that Islamophobia is bad, and they were really mad about it.
Yeah, and the freak out made them change the wording of the motion when motions are like non-binding in Canadian Parliament.
Yes, and I hate to say that a lot of ex-Muslims participated in that right-wing outrage as well. But
and then after the pandemic, like after the vaccine mandates, when that wasn't getting any traction anymore, that it was like parental rights or whatever.
That comes from the U.S. though. That is just building on their grooming panic and their stuff that they're doing in schools with like Moms for Liberty and
And I don't know I don't know what they're mad about now. I don't remember, but like.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because ultimately, it is a question that does not matter whether it's deliberate or not because the followers believe it's real. They believe what they're told. So whether the leaders believe it or not,
I think for sure that some of them, like J.K. Rowling, are so full of hate that if she's consuming right-wing sources, she's going to immediately believe it. I don't think that she was like, she's just that full of hate.
Ooh,
I don't think she made it.
Oh, sorry. Since you brought up J.K. Rowling, her yacht was, I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Her yacht was parked in Halifax Harbor for like a month, and a bunch of like LGBTQ people went out and like partied in front of her yacht.
I'm sure that was very traumatizing.
Well, eventually they had like the police guard the yacht, so. Yeah,
I bet. Yeah, so she was traumatized by it. But yeah, but just with the whole attacks on Imani Khalif, I really hope that she sues some of these assholes, or somebody with money gives her some money to sue some of these shitheads because they're just flagrantly lying about her, and saying that she's is currently a man or was born a man or is trans or just they don't even care what they're saying. They'll just say it and to whip up hate. And you've got Fox News has been very big on this, and Donald Trump has been saying this, and Elon Musk, of course, who is the world's most prominent transphobe by far, I think, has been fanning the flames with this, and and it really is.
Let me just read Rowling's tweets so people can know the extent of just hate in her words. So she said yesterday, tweeting a picture of Imani Khalif and her opponent. I think the opponent looks like she's crying, and to me it looks like Imani is trying to, or Iman, I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, is trying to console her. But this is how J.K. Rowling frames it. Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head, and whose life's ambition he's just shattered. And that got like 87,000 retweets, 31,000 quote tweets, and 425,000 likes. Just evil. Without confirming anything, without checking, she decided to tweet out into the world that this is a smirking male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, and then enjoying the distress of this woman that this person has just punched in the head. Like, talk about decontextualizing this sport. Like, it's boxing. That is this, like, punching is part of the sport. Maybe not in the head, but like, to frame this outside of that as like some evil enjoyment of punching someone is so fucked.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, the other thing is that, and there's two other angles about this. One is that she, and they're also starting to go after another woman from Taiwan. That she's next on deck for them. But Imani Khalif, she has competed in international boxing competitions for years and has lost several matches as well. Nobody said anything about her when she lost. Notice that.
Yeah, that always happens.
Yep, and then the other thing also is that there's a Russian connection to this stuff, in fact, because the one talking point that the right wing has put forward has been what they call a sex test, whatever the hell that means, and they never define how they by this organization called International Boxing Association, or what I believe was or Association of Boxing or something like that, IBA. But this group is run by a Russian national and has been banned by the International Olympics Committee for corruption. Like, if the IOC says that you are a corrupt organization, wow, that's if you're too corrupt for them, man, God, you are. I can only imagine how corrupt this group is. So, like, this is very, very likely an attempt to put a Russian, discord effort into social media. And of course, Republicans being Republicans, they will swallow anything that Russians tell them. I mean, literally, Rumble, which J.D. Vance is part owner, and so is Donald Trump Jr., is hosting RT, Russia television, on their platform because they were banned from every other mainstream platform for being foreign propaganda by, a murderous regime, dictatorial regime.
One that, America and Canada acknowledge is one, but not their pals, Israel, for some reason. I'm just going to read a quote from a BBC article about this situation. So, Khalif's opponent, Karini, also 25, said abandoning the fight had been a mature step to take, but she expressed regret at not shaking hands with Khalif afterwards. It wasn't something I intended to do, Karini said. Actually, I want to apologize to her and everyone else. I was angry because my Olympics had gone up in smoke. She added that if she met Khalif again, she would embrace her. Khalif has always competed in the women's division and is recognized by the IOC as a female athlete. The Algerian boxer was born female, was registered female, lived her life as a female, boxed as a female, has a female passport, IOC spokesperson Mark Adams said on Friday. So, I mean, there's just no reason to be fear-mongering about her other than she doesn't conform to your idea of, your narrow idea of what a woman should look like.
I mean,
awful.
Yeah, she was everything that the right wing claims to want in sports competition. Of you compete in the league of the genitalia you were born with. Well, that's what she did. It was literally what she's doing, and no one had a problem with it until the Russians and
she won.
Decided to until she won, and she didn't even win a medal. This was literally the first round match. I mean, that's the thing about all this narrative about women's sports is that trans women athletes don't dominate the sports that they compete in. There isn't a single actual trans person who is competing in the Olympics this year because they couldn't qualify.
It's just a fear-mongering tactic that they go on and on and on and on about this issue obsessively. You'd think that the entire world of sports was just like filled with trans women athletes, but it's not. And these people are just so miserable and hateful that they cannot let anyone enjoy anything. And they're just hateful fucking weirdos. Even her opponent has now apologized. The IOC has confirmed that she is a woman, born a woman. And yet, J.K. Rowling, as it stands right now, has left her tweet up. Like, what a shameful misogynist she is. Like, she claims to be a feminist, claims to be standing up for women's rights. Like, I have rarely come across someone as misogynistic as her. She's making all women less safe. She is putting these, like, tests to womanhood. It's beyond gross.
Yeah, and I can't imagine a more anti-feminist response to say that you have to conform to what I think you should look like or your body should be built like in order to be a woman. It's absolutely sick, but it fits into the right has no real message for women that is advantageous to them. I mean, this is the political side that goes and is trying to take away all of women's rights. Like in the United States, there are powerful Republicans who talk about repealing our 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. They're trying to criminalize birth control. They're trying, and they are already succeeding at banning abortion in all cases in many states, and including before a lot of women know they're pregnant, and including victims of incest and rape.
Yes.
There's
which we'll get to in a minute, but I just wanted to, on this topic of Imani Khalif, I wanted to say exactly who said what. So Elon Musk quote tweeted Riley Gaines, who has personal bitterness because she came fifth or something in some.
And the trans athlete did not get the medal either in the, the contest. She never says that. She never says that. And
Riley Gaines said, "Men don't belong in women's sport. When I stand with Angela Carini, who has now apologized to Imani, and she writes, 'Let's get it trending.' And then Elon Musk quote tweets her, of course, and in his typical weaselly way, just writes, 'Absolutely,' one word, and gets it trending and humiliates a woman, and just so sick.
Yeah, and this is endangering her life. Like, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Because
Algeria,
it is illegal to be trans, or even to be, lesbian. And, most Algerians probably had never heard of her. But now she has to go back home into a country where everyone will know who she is. And a lot of them will want to do violence on her because of who she is. And this is fucking sick. And this is why we call them weird. Like they have such a sick worldview, hateful worldview, that they don't care anything about truth or compassion or the things that they pretend to care about, like women's sports. I mean, the entire anti-trans ploy. Not only is it just a repeat of the exact same bullshit that they launched, decades ago against gays and lesbians, but it's also that they're focusing particularly on trans women because they don't have an actual message. And but what they're trying to do is sort of play into the idea of threatened womanhood, which is like this. That is the only right-wing trope. They have a trope. Like, that's what they offer women, is a trope that we will protect you, dear dainty women, if you will just come to us. And it's sick. It's sick.
Teddy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add that in addition to this all being, very transphobic and misogynistic, it is also deeply, deeply racist. I mean, a lot of this has roots in very white supremacist ideas about what kind of the perception of women and womanhood and who kind of qualifies as a woman. It reminds me quite a bit of this kind of trend among far-right social media influencers, particularly on TikTok, a few years back, that were basically kind of borrowing a lot of these kind of pseudoscientific race sciences, things like chronology and others, to make these videos where they would post pictures of famous and kind of well-known female celebrities and then like
Yes.
measure their facial features and talk about their bone structure as though those were all valid scientific techniques. And of course, the vast majority of the women that these people would claim were not actually women, but were probably transgender and biological men, almost all of them were women of color, particularly kind of black women and particularly kind of women, black women that have deep kind of their ancestry is kind of sub-Saharan African. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that up. It's all of this is really deeply rooted in white supremacy.
Right.
Yeah, it is, and actually that segues perfectly actually into our next topic here, because when Donald Trump, continuing proving how absolutely bizarre and hateful and what a freak he is, he went to the National Association of Black Journalists convention, and
yes, that was incredible.
And
wow,
an attack on Kamala Harris, saying that she wasn't black. Not only are they trying to say that non-white people are not even human, like non-Trump supporting black people are not even black. I mean, that's what is so incredible with what they're doing here, and I have to say, that this was the first real hard interview that Trump has had in years, and he couldn't handle it. He lost his mind repeatedly during the interview.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Yeah, he got really mad and frazzled. And why is it so hard for right-wingers to understand mixed race ancestry? Why can they not grasp that she can be both Indian and also be black? It's just so, it seems like such a self-own. And it's not just him. Like, they're all jumping on it. Like, I saw Lauren Boebert say that, oh, yeah, Trump's right. She's switched. You can't fucking switch. You can certainly be both. And, I have experienced this, not in terms of being mixed race, but like right-wingers have a hard time like holding two thoughts in their heads like at the same time. So I was experiencing this attack from right-wing atheists one time, and they were like swarming me online and trying to basically discredit me as an ex-Muslim. So they were like pulling clips, thinking that they found like such a great own, because they found me saying in some places that I've grown up in Saudi Arabia and I've experienced morality police and I've lived under Sharia law and it is harsh. And other places they found me saying that within Saudi Arabia, we grew up in a compound And that compound was for expats only. So it provided a bit of relief from the harsh Saudi Sharia law. And so within the compound, life was much more normal seeming. There was no morality police. And both things are obviously true. I have seen my mother hit in the ankle with a cane by morality police when I was little because her headscarf slipped. I also lived in a compound where a lot of foreigners lived. And so we had those moments of not morality police life. And we could go swimming at a swimming pool normally. But when we leave the compound, which is every day, we would be exposed to those harsh realities of life in Saudi Arabia. As a non-Saudi, you're particularly vulnerable because you have no rights there. Even if you're born there, but your parents are not Saudi, you can be deported just for like looking at a Saudi the wrong way. So they thought it was like this great own to say that actually
I caught you in a lie.
Yeah, I have not experienced real oppression because I have this privileged compound life in Saudi Arabia, which I've always openly talked about the duality of my existence in Saudi, the oppression as a woman and as a non-Saudi of South Asian descent. There's a lot of racism there. And then also having the privilege of living within a compound and the safety of that. So,
yeah. Well, and it's like, it does not. I mean, Donald Trump. This is another area where I think him being extremely old, that it's just hard for him to conceive of that. I mean, because when this guy was born, there were not even 50 states in the United States. Number one, and then number two is that. There was segregation when Donald Trump was a kid. And so, like, the idea of multiple people, being multiracial, that's just not a thing that he had any experience with growing up. Like, none.
But come on, he lives in the world now, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he doesn't care about what anybody's experiences now. Like, the only people who talk to him now are people, who are trying to get paid by him. And so he's not going to ask them, oh, tell me about your family. He doesn't give two shits about their family or where they came from. And so, like, this really does not compute to Donald Trump, the idea that you could be multiple races.
But also to all, like, multiple followers of his, so many prominent followers of his. It's so bizarre. Much younger people, too. Right? Like Laura Loomer or Boebert.
Well, that's true. Yeah, and actually, for them, I think this is an example. So, for people who don't know my background, I used to be a right-wing political and media consultant, and one of the reasons I left that world was because so many people that I worked with were just staggeringly incompetent. They didn't know anything. They never researched. They never did any fact checking. They just spouted whatever came into their head. And like, I think for a lot of them, they have this in their. They really believe that the mainstream media and Democrats are the same organization. That they work together directly at all times to coordinate messages, which would be news to any Democratic political operative. Who they're constantly complaining about how the media doesn't run democratic messages and ideas. But so they really think that because Reuters ran a headline that called Kamala Harris Asian American, that therefore that's what she identified as. And that it was her who did that. Like, they actually literally have no conception of separation between the mainstream media and Democrats. They really think they're the same thing.
But also this idea that she's like tricking people to gain sympathy. It's just so silly. Like, As I was saying, my personal experience is that you can not hold two things in your mind at the same time. It's like, it's not always a trick, you idiots. It's not always a trick. Sometimes two things can be true.
Well, yeah, and the thing also is, just from a historical standpoint, that, I mean, we had already had several black senators before she came along. So guess what? No one's going to run an article saying Kamala Harris is the first black senator. It's not true. We've already had both a black woman senator before her as well. So there's not going to be an article that says that. But this is where their incompetence, I think. It's like there's a logical fallacy called the argument of incredulity, that I don't believe a thing could be possible, so therefore it's not true. And that's basically every right-winger's constant mental state. Like, they think that about everything. They think that the Earth couldn't be billions of years old because you weren't there. So how do you know that it's not that it's billions of years old? You weren't there when humans evolved. So how do you know that God didn't magically make humans? Like, they think that about everything, and they think that about COVID vaccines. They think that about regular vaccine. I mean, they think that about literally everything. If I can't conceive of something, then it's false. And if I can conceive of something, then it's true. So that's what I think this is about.
But even after they've been told repeatedly that she is both, some of them are like really just full force still denying it. Like Laura Loomer denying that her dad is even black, like he's Jamaican. It's unreal that she would even try this, because you got to know when you've lost an argument, right? So Laura Loomer has said she's a white nationalist, but she's also like welcomed by some Republicans. So
including Donald Trump.
Including Donald Trump. So it is shocking how unhinged she is. I will read some quotes from the Angry White Men blog. White nationalist Laura Loomer falsely claimed that Harris isn't black and may not be qualified to run for president. She explained that Harris was born to two immigrant parents and that this brings into question whether or not she's even qualified to be United States president, given the fact that neither of her parents were United States citizens at the time of her birth in the United States. I mean, anyone should know that she was born in the United States. She is a citizen, so that has no bearing on whether she can be president or not. And then here's another quote. At an event organized by the National Association of Black Journalists, the one you just mentioned, Matthew, Trump falsely claimed that Kamala Harris was Indian all the way until she suddenly became a black person. Trump's comments echoed his earlier lies about the former President Barack Obama, whom he alleged was not born in the U.S. This I find really fascinating, that it totally is. It parallels that birth. They just simply cannot have a person of color in that position of power. And so they have to delegitimize their very birth. You know what I mean?
It's about othering. That's really what it is.
Yes.
Everyone is other unless they submit to them.
Unless they're a straight white man.
Or Loomer, Republican, because Diamond and Silk.
Yes.
They'll love you if you agree with them. But yeah, it's
Loomer
about submission.
Concluded her monologue by stating that Harris is not African American, falsely suggesting that her birth certificate lists her as Caucasian, and accusing Harris of intentionally pretending to be something that she is not in order to stir up emotions and get votes. Then Laura Loomer also called Kamala Harris a brain-dead bimbo and not a woman of color. She also said, this was a title on one of her videos on Rumble, Deep State installs Kamala after failed assassination attempt. I mean, this is just unhinged Alex Jonesian stuff. She's insisting that her birth certificate says she's Caucasian. How is she Caucasian? Just look at her. She's not.
Yeah, well, and especially, I mean, given her going to a historically black college and becoming a member of the oldest black sorority in America. I mean, the idea that she pretended to only be Indian is just, it's totally ludicrous. But yeah.
And her being half Indian does not take away from her being black. Her being half black does not take away from her being Indian. How is this hard to understand? And they're also doing the thing where her dad is not black because he also is, I think, part white English or something. Like, he's of Jamaican background, and there's a lot of mixed ancestry people in Jamaica, but that doesn't mean that he's not black. Like, do people refer to Obama as white? They don't.
Well, I mean, it all. I mean, this is about trying to bring back the one drop rule, which is what existed in the Confederate America for such a long time, including in Northern America as well for a lot of the time. That it's all about trying to turn to otherize somebody, and to say that again that as a non-Republican, even her own racial identity is under question.
Right.
This is all about their identity politics, and I think, and I have seen this so I have actually been looking at some of the right-wing black commentators out there, and there's this guy named Rob Smith, I believe is his name. He did a whole video on how Kamala Harris is not black because because somehow, even though she was born in America and her father is Jamaican, the fact that she spent some time in Canada, it means that she has nothing in common with black Americans. And it's just complete bollocks, as the Brits would say. Again, like, for him to say that, it's just ludicrous. But there does seem to be some little subset of people that they're targeting with this message. I think that's why they're doing it. It isn't entirely, off the cuff idiocy from Donald Trump. They think that there's something to it, and it will be interesting to see if it works. I don't think it's going to work, but it might solidify some of the people because basically, essentially, they're afraid. It seems like that because Joe Biden was very, very weak with especially younger black Americans. And now that the Democrats are running a black candidate looks like so far, the polls are preliminary, but it looks like it has firmed up the Democrat support quite a bit. Not just the fact that she's black, but also that Biden was very old. Because, I mean, when he ran the first time, he won because of black Democrats, like that they gave him the nomination. So it wasn't that, anyway, so Kamala Harris being younger, being black, these are countering some of the problems that Biden had with younger black Americans, and so there's something going on here. We'll see if it lasts. I'm guessing they're going to drop it pretty quick.
I have heard some black Republican political strategists say that they're talking about just her. Whether she's black enough or not is extremely off-putting, even to black Republicans, and they need to stop this. I saw even Ben Shapiro post this meme about I guess an exit on the highway, and he said something talk about all her policies and all her issues with that, or just focus on her race. And even he seemed to be being put off, even though in the past he said, what qualifications does she even have other than this intersectional magic?
Which of course, the idea that Kamala Harris, the vice president, is not qualified when Donald Trump who when he was elected had zero political experience and had done nothing but fail in his businesses. So like he had not succeeded at anything. His entire career was handed to him first by his father and then later by NBC. Like this guy was going to go bankrupt again before The Apprentice came along and scooped him out of the gutter. And so, and then of course J.D. Vance has been a senator for just over a year.
The real affirmative action that nobody talks about is the hiring of mediocre white guys. Teddy, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add a couple things. One, I think the Loomer comments, kind of birther things she was promoting, the origins of that are actually from this really kind of fringe legal theory put forward by John Eastman.
Oh, okay. And I don't know who that is.
That's the guy who came up with Trump's steal of the election in the House. Who just got disbarred in California and is indicted in Georgia.
Very credible guy.
And I think the kind of discourse around like this, I think going back to kind of what you said earlier, Matthew, about kind of the fact checking, like the lack of fact checking within kind of right-wing media, and why when things like this happen, you don't see as much pushback, right, from within that space, or as much debate or challenging ideas.
Yeah, well, you get canceled if you do.
Right, and I think a perfect example, not that I feel bad for the guy or really have any empathy for him at all, is just look at Kyle Rittenhouse when he announced that he wasn't going to vote for Trump because he wasn't far right enough on guns. And then all of a sudden, the entire MAGA movement has disowned Kyle Rittenhouse in a matter of hours. I mean, for a movement that has so many people that kind of use kind of the rhetoric of we're independent thinkers and we are...
we think for ourselves, we do our own research.
Right. They are quick to stomp out any kind of dissent, or kind of once they use you up, in the case of people like, say, Glenn Greenwald or Matt Taibbi, right? Once they kind of get what they want from you, they discard you.
Right.
So,
that is a good point, and I guess it does. I'm reminded of there was another thing I forgot to put in our outline, Ina, that some of the attacks against Kamala Harris that the right wing does. She has a lot better chance than Hillary Clinton. Not only just the fact that she's younger and seems to be better in touch with younger people, but also, there's a reason that right wingers are attacking her and claiming that she didn't earn any of her success, that she slept her way to the top, that they call her heels up Kamala, because of
gross.
Yeah, because of a guy that she dated decades ago, and that he was her friend and may have helped her get one municipal office or whatever. The idea that one thing is responsible for her entire career is just asinine. Because especially when their leader Donald Trump had his entire fortune handed to him, but nonetheless, this is also their way of trying to negate the fact that people are now regularly saying that when you look at the two candidates, Donald Trump looks like a decrepit, bloated old man, and Kamala Harris is an attractive woman, and so therefore,
amazing how much that perspective changes. Because when it was Biden, truly, it was very concerning to see how frail, and you could not understand what he was mumbling. He was his sentences were trailing off, and it seemed, even though Trump is a total weirdo, freak, fascist, fuckhead, everything, but it seemed like he was definitely sharper and able to put sentences together. At least that bar is real low. And so it was super concerning to see that. But then now that dynamic has shifted, it's so funny to see just how frail and incoherent and babbling Trump is now looking in comparison, because she definitely looks sharper, younger, fitter, more put together.
Yeah, well, and she's not allowed to be that in their worldview, so they have to attack her. They're trying to turn the fact that she's younger, much healthier, looks like a normal person, and they turn that into, well, she's not really American and she's a slut. And it's just it's so patronizing and so obviously stupid that it's not working for them. It's not working. And especially when they nominate people who have no qualifications of any kind, and their leader can barely string a sentence together. He literally cannot speak a grammatical sentence to save his life. And he has.
And now you can actually see that so well, because before it's like I was holding my breath, thinking like, is Biden going to finish his sentence or not? So yeah. But we haven't really talked about Trump's really bad pick for VP.
JD Vance. Yes.
What a mistake that seems to have been.
It seems very much so, yeah.
It seems wild how much stuff has just happened. Like, we've just talked about so much, and we have not even touched Trump's VP pick.
No, we haven't. And there's just so much material with him too. This guy basically is the errand boy of Peter Thiel, and has basically seems to have constructed his entire worldview based on how can I get money out of Peter Thiel, and so he's like the mini me of Peter Thiel, the grotesque fascist oligarch who is trying to destroy democracy, and is openly saying that. That's,
right.
It is. I think everybody who's listening now knows that, but I think generally speaking, most people don't know who Peter Thiel is, and so he's a lot harder to get people to understand. When right-wingers, when we tell you the right wing is trying to attack democracy, that they actually mean it. Now we have somebody that we can, actually say, look, this is what I'm talking about. These are his viewpoints. And he's, just a deeply disturbed individual, a guy who, he very clearly
likes to fuck couches and dolphins.
Yeah. But he came from a lot of childhood trauma and abuse and violence. His mom was a drug addict. Instead of making him more empathetic, though, that experience made him more hateful.
Right.
Especially when he came into contact with Peter Thiel, because Thiel has the exact same worldview that I am the one who did everything for myself, which is just absurd. And Elon Musk, of course, is the same way. All these people whose lives were, if not handed to them like Trump or Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, his whole career is built on other people saying, hey, this guy looks kind of smart. Let me help him out. This guy literally has never done anything for himself, ever. And you can see that when the way that he cannot handle himself, just like Trump. That's the one thing he has the most in common with Trump, is that they're both total liars who will say anything. But then if you challenge them, they get extremely pissy and juvenile. And this whole couch thing is it punctures him so perfectly. Because, that's the thing. Like, they're trying to say that Kamala Harris is a chameleon, that she, she just lies about everything. It's like, J.D. Vance has changed his names 3 separate times in his life. Like, he has changed his positions on everything. He was pro-LGBTQ. He was anti-Trump. He was anti-Republican. He was pro-welfare state. I mean, all of he married he married an Indian woman, and now he talks about her as saying, well, she's non-white, but I still love her. She's a good mother.
Look, I love my wife so much. I love her because she's who she is. Obviously, she's not a white person, and we've been attacked by some white supremacists over that. But I love Usha. She's such a good mom.
That was such a cringe clip. My goodness.
It was, yeah.
The dolphin thing also was super funny. I think he had posted a picture of a search that he did, unrelated, but like it showed that he was searching for the words women and dolphin, and people just picked up on that. He had posted some screenshots and said the internet was a mistake, and people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you searching Twitter for pictures and videos of the keywords woman and dolphin? And so now that's become a whole meme. And the couch thing, I'm not sure where the couch thing came from, but it's super funny. And people are using some funny images of like couches and dolphins on couches, and yeah. He's just so aggressively uncharismatic. He had this one moment where he's trying to make a joke about how leftists or libs find everything racist. And he's like, I had a Diet Mountain Dew. They're probably going to say that's racist. And there's like this awkward pause and nobody laughs. And then eventually people are like, super, super strange. Super weird guy. And I think I read something from an old friend of his who said that he was so sympathetic, like a trans friend who said that he was sympathetic and empathetic and cared, and even like came like after top surgery with some cookies or something. Just does not seem like the same person, right? And now he's like Handmaid's Tale freak that wants to force women to carry children. Like there's this clip that's been circulating about how someone asked him, like, do you think that women should be forced to carry pregnancies that result from rape and incest? And he says something like, it's not about that, but it's about whether the people should be allowed to live, even if their conception was like through some inconvenient way. Like, he's reducing rape and incest to a mere inconvenience. It's fucking horrific.
It is, yeah, and this is, you know, one of the other things that just disgusted me when I was on the right was that they would think that you could, if you just talk about something differently, then it will be different. Like if you frame something differently, then it's a different thing. And so, like, and that's what he did in that interview. So I shared that in the space, so you guys can check that out. But basically, yeah, he was saying that, well, okay, yeah, sure, you shouldn't think of it as victims of sexual violence being made to carry their assailant's child. You should think of it as the child being allowed to live. And it's like, you can't fucking do that. You can't do that. This is still happening to the victim. You know, however you want
and
to
it's
label
not
it, it's
a
still
child
to them.
right at the start.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, so it's like whatever
each
label
individual,
you put on it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant what you're calling it. It's what matters to them, and they were the victims of sexual violence, and you say it's just inconvenient. And yeah, and it's sick, and like people see that and they're disgusted by it. And I mean, he just puts one foot in his mouth after the other, and just keeps doing it over and over. And for somebody to think that Peter Thiel is a role model, like Peter Thiel is like, he is like a vampire, looks like a vampire. He literally has the obsessions of Dracula, of eternal youth. He wants to get blood transfusions for himself to keep himself younger and stop himself from dying. His fantasy is freezing his body in case somehow the
please don't insult Dracula. What did he ever do to you? Don't insult Satan. Don't insult Dracula. These people are so much worse.
Although, actually, speaking of Satan, you gave us a good segue there. I know. This whole, accurately pointing out that the MAGA movement is comprised of bizarre, freakish individuals with viewpoints that are offensive and loathsome and, fantasies is what they are. It's breaking these people, and it's forcing them to have to come out and really expose themselves. And I think yesterday I found a clip of this right-wing podcaster who was on Mike Lindell's website. That's where I found him.
That's the pillow guy, right?
Yes, Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, My Pillow. And he said that the reason that people are calling Trump supporters weird is because demonic entities are telling you to say that. I'm glad it was educational. I didn't know that. I could use a demon to help me with the housework once in a while. I'll tell you.
I only say what demonic entities tell me to. So that's everything I say, not just this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and it's I can think of no better argument to when people say that you're weird is to say that demons are making you say that I'm weird. Like that's
totally disproves that you're weird.
Yeah, totally normal thing to say.
Oh, that's so good. And also, speaking of Satan, let me go back to the Olympics for a second, because they had this one performance of like beheaded Marie Antoinettes and this metal band, which was actually quite cool. And the right-wingers, of course, were really offended, and they came up with this whole like conspiracy theory about how like the Paris Olympic opening ceremony was like signaling some demonic takeover that the left has unleashed on this world through drag queens and this hedonistic Last Supper mockery, and now the beheaded Marie Antoinette, and metal equals Satan. Just such simple-minded stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact same bullshit that they were on about in the 1980s with Pat Robertson and all that. Play the Rolling Stones backwards and play the Beatles backwards. It says to worship Satan. An Ozzy Osbourne is going to turn you into a devil worshiper.
Oh, yeah, and it's not just the Christians, though. By the way, I sent you this screenshot of this once popular atheist tweeter. He used to call himself Godless Spell Checker, such an embarrassing name that even he had to change it now. He calls himself G Spell Checker. His whole shtick was to like go around on Twitter finding theists that can't spell atheist, and he would like correct their spelling of atheist. It's just like such an internet pedantic thing to do. Anyway, so he was mad also about this Last Supper thing. Here's what he tweeted. Number one, Christianity has not earned. He has to lay it out first that, he's not like the Christians. Christianity has not earned nor deserves any protection or exemption from mockery, ridicule, and satire. Number two, however, However, I do wonder why drag artists doing a parody of The Last Supper is part of an Olympics opening ceremony. Why? Who was that even for? Then number 3, Christians, brackets, and others are completely right to notice that no other religion is treated this way. In fact, we all know that one religion in particular is completely off limits for treatment of this sort. Violence reliably follows from mockery of Islam. Now, firstly, let me just say that the French, nobody has ever seen them mock or criticize Islam before, right? Like nobody's heard of Charlie Hebdo. I mean, of course,
and banning
there are
headscarves. Yeah.
And banning headscarves, yes. Charlie Hebdo. And of course there are terrorists and extremists. And you know what? I absolutely wish that the Muslim community would one day get to this point where we could have this kind of jokes and satire and skewering of our own religion. However, you have to recognize that in the West, there are so many layers to this, right? The reason that Christianity is mocked more easily than other religions is because that is what they feel is the dominant religion in the West, right? That is the majority religion. That is safe to mock.
And it's just making a joke that people can understand. Like, if as a comedian, you get up on the stage and you're like, I was reading this stupid verse in the Quran, like this surah number 4. It's just so moronic, guys. Like, let me tell you, they're going to leave.
424. Yes, I know the one you're talking about.
Like, they don't want to hear about it. Like, they have no idea what you're talking about. It's like going up, and so. But also, yeah, the reason that this happens is that that non-right-wing Christians, that we have enough people in Western society that are not far-right religious fundamentalists.
Yes.
That's why we can make these shows.
Yes, exactly.
And you guys are enabling the Christian whack job people to do exactly what you say the Muslim fundamentalists want to do.
Yes.
That's the other thing. It's like you guys are having Mike Johnson as your leader. A guy who believes in creationism, a guy who says that homosexuality is caused by Satan. These are who your leaders are. Like the guy, Mark Meadows, who was Donald Trump's chief of staff. Mark Meadows, he was a huge figure in the creation science, so-called, the creationism movement. Like he took his kids and organized trips to go dig for fossils to prove that the flood of Noah was real. This is who runs the Republican Party. Like, if you say that you're concerned about atheism and secular values and all that stuff, you need to get the fuck out of the Republican Party because
G Spellchecker, to be clear, is a British right-wing atheist. But yeah, he's just, I can't believe how far he's fallen because there would be a point where, he would be on board with pissing off right-wing Christians, but he has been so radicalized and just awful. He's become like emboldened to sort of signal at his like anti-drag, anti-trans, anti-queer views. The only time that they care about like, gay rights is when they can use that to bash Muslims or even women's rights. Otherwise it's like anti-feminism all the way and anti-wokeness. But yeah, imagine being an atheist and legitimizing Christians being outraged by the silly Olympic ceremony, having some fun with hedonistic depictions of Greek gods. Yeah, of ancient Greek culture.
And I think this is an instance where Sam Harris not being on Twitter is helpful to him.
Yeah, I know. I would be really curious to see what kind of takes he did the right thing, because he had some really bad takes recorded because he couldn't help himself. But we had James Lindsay, who's an American right-wing atheist, who has spearheaded this anti-queer grooming panic. So it's not like a one-off thing. Unfortunately, we have like a significant presence of these right-wing atheists within the atheist scene. And
he has literally sold out to Christian nationalists. Like, that's who pays him. He gets a paycheck from.
Has he come out as Christian yet? Has he come out as Christian yet?
I don't know about that, but I know that he has no problem working for them. And
right, yeah, he hasn't for a few years, but
give him time. I think
this fact that they don't understand that people are more comfortable making fun of something that is their culture, and it would be odd and awkward to mock somebody else's and kind of like punching down. Because why would you be making fun of a minority religion? Like, just like in Pakistan, it would be super weird and racist of me to talk about Christians and Christianity in the same tone that I do in North America, because they are a truly persecuted minority over there, and it would be extremely irresponsible to spread that kind of rhetoric about a genuinely marginalized community who has their churches attacked and stuff, unlike Fox News Christians who cry that people are saying happy holidays. So again, we're at the point where right-wingers can't seem to understand that different contexts, different things, require different responses.
Well, and their own culture comes from Greek culture. Like, that's... Whenever I have discussions with and I don't have a lot of them anymore, but before I got out, like, they would always say to me, like, "Don't you believe in Judeo-Christian society, Matt?" And I'd be like, "Well, okay, you do realize the American legal code is based on Roman law, right?" They're like, "No, it's from the Ten Commandments." And I was like, "Is that why there's no Hebrew in our legal terms? Is that why instead we have hundreds of Latin phrases in our terms?" I was like, they have no concept of their own culture. And actually, but while you were talking, though, I did go into James Lindsay's Twitter here. And of course, he is predictably outraged by the Olympics. I'm just going to read some of the things he said. He says, "Of course, the Olympics is a weapon now. We should flatly ignore it and fight to keep it away from our cities like it's radioactive." And he says, "The Olympics are captured globalist trash now, and cities should compete not to be cursed by them. Boycott the Olympics." And then, it's...
it's interesting that he says that when there are legitimate reasons to be boycotting the Olympics, because they are letting war criminals participate very hypocritically. They have a child rapist participating. Oh my God,
yes. I'm glad you're mentioning. And that's something that they could be outraged about, but they don't say a damn thing.
Perfectly legitimately. Their flag, the Israeli team's flag bearer, has photos signing bombs that are being dropped on children.
Yeah. Well, and then, irrespective of the competitors, I mean, you could argue correctly that, a lot of cities that have the Olympics, they end up hurt by them financially because they're not
the most vulnerable.
And then, homeless people get carted away or imprisoned. And then they're left with these architectural structures that have no use later and fall into disarray or become, places of crime and whatnot. I mean, so there's all kinds of things you could say that would be legitimate against the Olympics, but of course that's not what these people say.
Yeah, of course. But are we getting to a point where we are ready to start wrapping up? Teddy, did you want to say something before?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something about James Lindsay because he's been on my radar for a while. So he has
Such a lovely person.
he has openly criticized things like white nationalism, but then he's also kind of been perfectly willing to kind of carry the water for like various outrages. I think, for example, when the Transgender Day of Visibility, remember that day? It happened to fall on Easter.
Oh yeah, that's it.
And James Lindsay was out there saying, "Oh yeah, this is a front to Christianity." But also, I think with James Lindsay, I think he, even though he's a self-professed atheist and he has been critical of like things like Christian nationalism, I think.
But how can you credibly be critical of Christian nationalism when you're also helping to further it and working?
And you work for
well, they are. I think they are. He's aligned with them on certain issues, and he uses coded language that I think they recognize, especially kind of when it comes to his ideas about like things like critical race theory, which he has coded with a lot of anti-Semitic tropes about how those ideas came to America and kind of this whole conspiracy theory around German Jews coming to the United States in the 1930s. By the way, all of those ideas have been cribbed by, oh god damn it, what's his name?
Rufo?
Yeah. Like most of the things that Rufo writes and says were heavily influenced by Lindsay and kind of cribbing a lot.
Yeah. Well, and he actually does admit that in a rare moment of honesty.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It was a fun discussion, and hopefully we will have it up on Matthew's going to put it up on his Patreon, and I will be putting it on my main feed. So if you've missed it, you can catch up.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone.